Or bluffing? I don't know.
That's a tough question. He writes about this in his journal, and he saw an opportunity to go to college and become educated, and he wanted to become a clergyman. That was the career he had chosen without this personal relationship.
Yeah, it was more of a job, wasn't it? I mean, it was
more of a job.
Yeah.
It was a way to prestige, too, early on, because that's he decided to do that before his conversion.
Right.
Yeah, and then he was converted in college, hanging out with John and Charles Wesley and others of what we call the Holy Club now, or they called it that back then, I believe. And then his life, now he had a mission. And at some point he made it his mission to make the whole world his parish.
You know, I have to tell you, I think, Barbara, what I learned is what Ben Franklin, did anybody know Ben Franklin's view on poverty and the poor? I mean, it's shocking. Nobody would ever say this today. He said, you want to help the poor? Make them uncomfortable in their poverty. They'll pull themselves out. He was uncomfortable in his poverty, so he wanted to do something about it, get out. But then he fell in with the right kind of friends, and then was transformed. And I think the lesson, those lessons, but then is followed by stand up. Know what you believe, and then stand up for it, no matter what arrows come. Tom.
Yes, I guess I'm starting to learn more about him as the show is progressing, but there's still a part of my understanding that's dark. He affected the culture. He affected the spiritual nature of the American spirit. What part, except maybe indirectly, but is there a more direct part that he played in the political landscape itself? He died, if I'm not mistaken, in 1770, 6 years before the Revolution. Was there something that he had that was a direct, had a direct impact on the political future of the country, or was it just through, and I'm not to diminish it when I say just, was it through the culture, the society, and the spirit of the country?
Well, you're correct. It was through the culture and the society. He had probably a very profound impact on a lot of people. Not everyone, but many, perhaps even a majority of American society. Yet as his ministry, as his enterprise, it's been called, even went on, the years passed by, he became more and more politically active for the Whig Party.
Which is the one, that's like the libertarians.
They were, yeah.
They were the freedom.
And they wanted a strong parliament, the people having a say in the making of laws. And the Tories, of course, were the pro-King party.
I have to tell you that don't dismiss, we have to take a break, don't dismiss the power, look at what's happened to our culture now, the power of the suggestion that you can't make it, you'll never make it, you need a handout, you need this, you need that. His was the opposite message. His message was, no, you got a direct channel here, that's all you need. And so I think that idea of the power of the individual that has been lost in America, wasn't here in America, was lost in America and needs to be regrown now, I think is the key. Back in just a second. Do you agree with that?
Okay, it's 5 p.m. I gotta finish this conference call, I gotta walk the dog, I'm stuck on the train, need to make dinner. Did you pick up the kids from soccer practice yet? There's no time to watch this show now. Hey, it's okay. Just do what Glenn does. DVR it. Then, like Glenn, you can watch it late night on your couch with a scoop, well, actually a pint. Okay, a gallon of Grater's ice cream. Set your DVR for Glenn Beck, 5 p.m. every day.
Back with guests Thomas Kidd and Jerome Mahaffey. We're talking about George Whitefield, our founder for Friday today.
Yeah, well, I just wanted to follow up on this issue about Whitefield's political involvement. As the 1760s went on, he did become very overtly involved with the crisis between Britain and the colonies. In fact, he may have been one of the earliest people from Britain to start warning the colonists that there was trouble coming. There's reports that in 1764 he came to America and said, "There's trouble coming from Britain, and your golden days are at an end," is the quote of what he said, and began warning people ahead of time that this was coming.
He called it there is a deep laid plot against your civil and religious liberties.
And then when he
hang on just a second.
yeah.
There is a, what was it again?
A deep laid plot.
There's a deep laid plot
against both your civil and religious liberties. Your golden days are at an end.
What he said.
My heart bleeds for you, America.
That's right. And so when he goes back to England, he's there with Franklin, again, his good friend Franklin. When Franklin testifies before Parliament on the colony's behalf because of their protests against the Stamp Act, and Whitefield, I think, behind the scenes, is advocating against the Stamp Act. And by the time you get to Whitefield's passing in 1770, and on his last trip to America, he dies in Massachusetts, the funeral sermons by the colonial pastors are saying he is largely to thank for the repeal of the Stamp Act. And they say he was a true patriot, not just in words, but also in action. So they interpreted him as having a very significant role in the resistance.
You can understand how significant his role was also by what Benedict Arnold's men did before they went into battle. I mean, this is shocking today. But just as Moses, right, was carried into the land of milk and honey, or you know, the tablets representing him, what did they do here?
Well, in 1775, when the war had started, independence wasn't yet declared, but in September 1775, there was a campaign being led by Benedict Arnold, the man who would later become the great traitor, against Quebec. And some of the troops stopped in Newburyport, Massachusetts, which is where Whitefield is buried. And it was a Sunday, so they didn't want to keep marching along. So they had a parade and they had a church service. And then this is where it gets weird. The officers went down to the crypt where Whitefield was buried. They opened up the tomb and they took his clerical collar and wristbands, and they cut them up and distributed them among the officers to go out on the campaign.
So they could wear them in battle.
So they could take it with them. And I think, as you said, this speaks to just the power and resonance of Whitefield in that culture at that time. I mean, they see him as somehow the representative of what the revolution is about.
But I think it also says something about how our culture has far too many spooky movies, because I'd be too chicken to go open. I mean, would any of you go like, hey, let's go open up the crypt and go get some stuff off the... I don't think so. I don't think so. All right, back, final thoughts here in a minute. Sitting with a group of people here in New York, and we're talking about George Whitefield. Oh yeah, this is a show that's, I mean, this is so sexy. You can see why people watch. A guy who most people don't even know, and Rhonda, is it Rhonda? Yes. Yes, you had a question.
Why aren't our children learning more about George Whitefield? He had such a power and impact on our society.
Well, I think that in America we have a hard time dealing with the topic of religion in the public schools. I mean, somehow if you talk about somebody like Whitefield, does that mean that you're endorsing him?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
You know, America, it's time to start talking about religion. It's time to start talking about the truth about all these guys. And if Jesus is involved, Jesus is involved. Get over it. The truth will set us free. From New York, good night, America.